All right, everyone. Welcome back to another Game Vault video. As always, I'm Cat to Beefy with the Game Vault. We're going to talk a little bit more about some DEI, and we're going to touch on some stuff we spoke of yesterday, but in a different way. So let's cue up the music, and we'll get right to it. There's a little game called Halo. You may have heard about it. It was popular on Xbox quite a ways back. Well, it still is pretty popular, I guess, to this day, to some state. But the Halo series composer Marty O'Donnell says video game industry is now pandering because they fear being on the wrong side of some special interest groups who could be very loud and very annoying. Yeah, let's talk about this. So, before we even get into this story, they're worried about special interest groups who can be very loud and very annoying. You know what? It's our time to be very loud and very annoying and to push back against all this garbage that's being spoon fed to us in game after game, time after time. It's time to push back and push back twice as hard as it's being pushed onto you. You know, what was it? Was it Newton or was it Einstein? It says for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Well, it's time to react, guys. So push back hard. Make videos, get on social media, tell these developers what you feel about their games and the pushing of DEI and the ruining of games just for the sake of diversity and to appease these little special interest groups. So this article is from Bounding Into Comics. I'll link to it down below. But let's talk about it a little bit. And there's a video, but we won't watch it. If you want to catch this video in its entirety, you can go ahead and watch it. It's a great watch. In providing anecdotal confirmation to one of the most widely assumed reasons for the currently abysmal state of Western entertainment, original Halo series composer Marty O'Donnell has revealed that any and all such industries are currently living in fear of being on the wrong side of various special interest groups and their outrage mobs. Now, these mobs are surprisingly small in the grand scheme of things. They're big on the internet because they're loud on the internet. They all just amplify each other. They've had free reign of social media for years and years now. Thank God Elon Musk took on Twitter and created X out of it and got rid of that excremental Twitter that was just the most, oh God, it was a despicable place to talk. You could say anything that went against the narrative. It didn't matter how innocuous it was. You'd get attacked for it. If you fought back, you got timed out or banned or whatever. It was just absolutely despicable. And I love the meltdown since Elon Musk took over and how much these people cry all the time. They're not safe on Twitter anymore, or X as we'll call it. They're not safe. There's not a safe space. They can't just run rampant over everybody. They need to be held accountable for what they say. Community notes are an amazing addition. I mean, it's awesome. But O'Donnell, whose talents helped provide the soundtracks to each one of the mainline Bungie-developed Halo titles, spoke to this phenomenon during a June 19th appearance on noted conservative commentator Andrew Chapados' eponymous Andrew Says podcast. And here it is. Halo theme creator Marty O'Donnell is running for Congress. Well, that's cool, Marty. Good luck on that, man. We need more people with your type of viewpoints in government. So, yeah, get there. Nevada really needs you, man. That state is on the brink. But following a general discussion about his current political campaign to represent Nevada in the U.S. House of Representatives, O'Donnell was eventually pressed by Chapados for his thoughts on the topic of DEI in video games, with the host inquiring, when you were involved in games, was representation on anybody's mind? Was the amount of diversity, the amount of transgender characters in games ever a topic that anybody thought they should worry about? In turn, the esteemed composer affirmed, no, it wasn't. And go woke, go broke, we keep seeing that happen over and over again, said O'Donnell. DEI is not diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is a code word for essentially a Marxist worldview of power structures. There's so many catchwords that are being injected into the conversation. Colonization, decolonization, all these kinds of things. It is so far from what, especially in the entertainment business, what people should be worried about. Are you going to tell a good story? Are you going to make a good game? Are you going to do something that's compelling emotionally for people, that's fun for people? That's what creators should be concerned about. Elon Musk wrote DEI kills art recently and made somebody cry. I forget who cried about it, but somebody, I'm being a little hyperbolic. They didn't cry, but they're like, that really breaks my heart to hear. But DEI does kill art. Because if you're worrying about all this other garbage, you are not creating. You are using a checklist to make something. You're basically using a recipe. And that's why entertainment is garbage these days. That's why movies like Marvel movies became like copies of each other pretty much. It was like, okay, here's another Marvel movie. It's going to have all these little checklists of things to do on it. And it got worse and worse. And as the first three, I'll give it to them. The first three phases were good. Yeah, there was there's a bit of a formula to a lot of the movies, but with the different characters and all that, it worked. It's like, okay, here's our guy. He's normal. Here's the event that changes him, makes him into a superhero. Here he is trying. It was the old hero's journey and all that. And that's fine. It is what it is. But then they went down a different road come phase 4, and they started doing all this weird garbage and all that. Now I'm totally disinterested in it. But it was all about diversity at that point. You could see it coming. You could see it coming in phase 3, little touches of it here and there, and then full blown in phase 4, and that's when it all fell apart and went in the toilet. Pushing back against the popular narrative that prior to the 2010s, entertainment was composed solely of straight white people, he continued, we've had our share, I guess, would have to say diverse characters, but it wasn't because we needed to make sure there was a certain percentage of, fill in the blank. It was because they were like either great actors or this was going to be a great character. It was never any part of what our discussions were about. Like, let's make sure we fill in the blank so the game characters reflect perfectly the makeup of the society, the U.S. congressional candidate told Chapados. That is just such a creatively dampening way of approaching things, which is why I think fans are rejecting this ideology. The fans don't necessarily reject movies or games because diversity or equity or inclusion kind of things are forced into face. Certainly, they don't like being preached to. But basically, these are not good products. At the end of the day, if it's not fun to play, it is not interesting, these characters don't sound real. That's what ends up happening. People just don't like it. They're not good stories. They're not memorable. And he's right. No one wants to we go to play a game to get away from the real world, right? We come home from work, we're tired and all that. It's been a rough day. You want to go on there and get on your power fantasy and go kick some ass, right? Have some fun. Go run some missions, whatever type of game you play, build your next city, whatever. We don't want to be preached to. If we want to be preached to, all you got to do is say something online and you have 1,000 people preach to you right now. Yeah, it's absolutely gross. We keep hearing about this modern audience and it doesn't exist. The modern audience is like one of the greatest lies that's out there right now. I don't know what this modern audience is comprised of, but they never show up. They don't show up to the movies fail. They don't show up to buy the video games fail. They never show up for anything. It's like this weird imaginary group of millions of people that either don't exist or don't have money to buy things. I don't know what it is, but that's that. Further pressed by Chapados as to why do these developers keep doing it, O'Donnell revealed that the answer to his question was relatively simple, and fear is the answer. And let me tell you, fear is the single greatest thing you can do to control people. If you look back at the pandemic a few years ago, the plandemic, when they announced that COVID was coming to the U.S., I watched my country turn into an insane asylum where families were just destroyed over this simple virus, right? The worst virus in the history of mankind. Now, I'm not denying it existed, and I'm not denying that it could at times, be lethal to people, but it was nowhere near what they told us it was going to be. It was nowhere near as bad. It was nowhere near as dangerous. And it was an absolute joke in the end. And even now, Dr. Fauci was talking in front of Congress a few days ago, or a week ago now. It was like, he admitted he just made up shit as he went along, But fear controlled us. Fear kept people locked in their houses. Fear turned family members against each other. Fear, wow. Everybody just sold out in a heartbeat. Not everybody. There's a few people that stood up to it. But boy, that they faced a lot of persecution from their jobs, from the government, from their friends, from their family. Personally, I did too. It was awful, but in the end, I stood strong and I stood by my beliefs and I have zero regrets about it. So there's that. But fear is the great controller. Don't ever forget that. I can't say for certain what's in everybody's mind, but I know when I was there, when I was on the board of directors at Bungie, and when I talked to the higher ups at Microsoft, there was a lot of fear, and the fear started creeping in, explained the former Bungie executive. There is fear that you are going to essentially get on the wrong side of some special interest group who can be very loud and very annoying, so let's placate these people. So I would say fear is probably one of the biggest things. I don't think, in my experience, that these are deeply held beliefs, he further detailed. You have to understand that, especially in big companies, the C-suite and the executives, all they're looking to do, or all they're doing is looking at the bottom line. I honestly think a lot of these people are empty suits. They don't actually have core values, so they adopt the core values of the moment to make sure they are on the right side. That way, they don't get any backlash. And that's an indictment against the kinds of people who end up running companies, O'Donnell clarified. I've rarely found people with strong moral character running the companies. They tend to just go the way the wind blows, and it's going to take them a little while to realize that this is actually not helping their bottom line. There may be a few true believers out there, but it's few and far between, in my opinion. And what he's talking about there is also, most politicians are the same way. They're like a bag in the wind, just blowing around, and whatever direction they go is just the way the wind is blowing at the time, and it's pretty disgusting. Have a spine. If you've got a belief, stand up for your belief and state it. I will disagree with it if I don't agree with it, but I will respect you if you stand by it. If you change your belief because it's suddenly unpopular, well, then I have zero respect for you. Look at the clown we have in office right now. Joe Biden, right? The worst president in the history of the United States. Remember on day one, when he was elected, he went and opened the borders up and got rid of all the stuff Donald Trump did to secure the border and all that, and just opened it wide up. And we had millions of criminals invade our country during his tenure here. And now all of a sudden he's talking about the border because now all of a sudden it's an issue because people are realizing that was a bad mistake. Duh. Who can think that wasn't going to be a bad mistake? But there you have a spineless politician who is just going with the way the wind blows. The only reason he shut it all down in the beginning and went against what Trump did is because people didn't like Trump, and he got elected because he was the anti-Trump. Well, boy, he sure was. Everything went to shit when he took office. But that's a story for another day and another channel. Venting his own frustrations on the matter, the musician declared, "It doesn't make sense. Almost nobody who ends up being at the top level of these entertainment companies actually ever made any entertainment. They aren't actual directors. They're not artists. They're not musicians. They're not writers. They haven't created anything," he explained. "They might have come from marketing or have an MBA or worked their way up through the production side of things when they're not really making things. They're just overseeing the production side. And so, for some reason, I don't trust their judgment. They just don't have good judgment when it comes to this, and they have a lot of fear. So I would say fear is the big driving factor here." Man, I could talk all day about fear. It is just, it's bad. Fear is no better way to control. Look at every abusive relationship, It's always driven by fear. Fear keeps the people in line, and it's disgusting. Next asked by Chapados on whether he personally remember any instances in which a given industry executive forced a game to conform to the dominant narrative, O'Donnell informed his host, "I started seeing a little bit even during Halo 2, which goes back quite a ways. We were making Halo 2 in 2002, 2003, which was close enough after 9/11, and if you know the story of Halo, it's about this group of religious zealots that essentially will commit suicide to keep their religion going," the composer recalled. What's that sound like to you? That's the characters we had for the Covenant. They started making Microsoft a little bit nervous because they felt there could be some backlash from the Muslim community in the Middle East that maybe this could be seen as Islamophobic. So all of a sudden we were being asked to be careful about some names of people or references or phrases and things like that. So I started seeing that and I thought, well, that's not necessarily unreasonable because we weren't trying to do some sort of allegory about the political situation in the world that had nothing to do with jihadists and the rest of it. Providing an example of just what changes Microsoft ordered a Bungie, O'Donnell noted, "Maybe you know this story, but one of our main characters, the Arbiter, was not originally named the Arbiter. During the whole time we were making Halo 2, the character's name was the Dervish. We had recorded all the voice, I had directed all the actors, and everybody was using the term Dervish. Then we found out, this could be seen as an insult because there are Islamic religious figures known as dervishes." And so there it begins. This is probably the top of the slippery slope that has taken 20 some odd years to get to where we are now, where We create female characters. We change them to look like trans men, where every character is replaced with a strong black lesbian woman, and it's gotten to just an absolute level of ridiculousness now that is unbelievable. I mean, we have whole companies out there designed to preach diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to consult gaming companies and extort money from them if they don't fall in line. Look at Sweet Baby Inc. and what they tried to do with the Wukong game there. Oh my God, it's absolutely criminal. If it's not criminal, boy, it is definitely just. It's out of hand. It's got to stop, man. It's got to stop. And I have a feeling we're going to see it stop in the next couple of years. So be patient and keep pushing back. Don't spend your money on this garbage. If you hear a game has been infected with DEI, step away from it. Step away from the Assassin's Creed Shadows. Step away from this new Dragon Age, the Veilguard. Step away from all this garbage. Games will fail and continue to fail. People will lose their jobs. Executives' heads are going to be on the chopping block. And then all of a sudden, we're going to see a change in things. Because the companies that aren't getting chopped up are the ones that aren't putting out that garbage. And consulting groups like Sweet Baby Inc., they're going to be out of a job because people are going to look at them and be like, no, you're a cancer. Anything you touch dies. And they're going to be gone. So tell me your thoughts down below about this whole situation here. I mean, it's interesting to see how far back this goes, right? 20-something years ago. And I get it, right? You don't, I remember at the time of, I was, 31 years old, right? Yeah, 31 years old when 9/11 happened. And it was something, that was something. That was, I wasn't a little kid, so it wasn't like an event that I just barely remember, anything like that. And I was a full-grown adult. I was getting my brakes done at a brake shop, and I was sitting in the waiting room area. And you know how they had the little TVs up in the corner there, little color TVs, probably 22-inch screen or 20, whatever, no sound. And all of a sudden, I saw the towers. I saw that one of them on fire, and I'm like, wait, what? And I told the guy behind that, can you turn that up? And he turned it up, and I was in that room with 5 or 6 other strangers, and we all just stood in front of that TV watching. And then the second plane hit, and we were just in silence. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was just, I don't know how to describe how I felt. It was surreal. And we all just looked at each other. We were like, what are we watching? Is this real? And then instantly the backlash was against Islam and Muslims and all that. And, they're the ones that did it. So it's rightfully so, right? I mean, that's according to what we were told. So, of course there's going to be prejudice and backlash against it. It's just the way life is. That's the way humans operate. But I get companies not wanting to, push it. And that's cool and all that. But still, putting on kid gloves and worrying about offending people, not good. It's not a good look. It's actually a crappy look and doesn't work well for you. Purposely offending groups of people, that's just as bad. You know what I mean? Make your game, make it good, make your characters, make your religion, whatever you want to do. And when people come at you for it and say, well, you're doing this. No, I'm not. It's just, if you see it that way, that's your problem, not my problem. I didn't make it as an allegory for Islam. This is just the way these characters are. This is, boom, done, whatever. Stand by yourself. Have a freaking spine. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this thing up. Don't forget to leave a like on the video down below. Subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications. As always, I'm Captain Beefy with the Game Vault. I'll see you next time. Until then, peace.